Hello guys, and welcome to another featured community build. Today we have Meliodas' Stamina Warden. This is a bow, sword and board Stamina Warden with a crazy amount of burst. We've got a whopping 29k physical spell resist, 5.5k weapon damage, and almost 3k stamina recovery fully buffed. Yep. This is a beast of a build. It is incredibly resistant to snares, and it generates ultimate like no other. Without further ado, guys, let's check this build out. Big shout out to Meliodas yet again for submitting the build. If you guys want to submit your own builds, feel free to send them to CristoferESO@hotmail.com. So let's jump into it. All right, so let's take a look at that build, guys. So, to begin, I just want to say that this is a no CP build. It was given to me as a no CP build. So, we are in a CP campaign, so we're going to look at the build with the max CP stats. However, this build should function well in a no CP environment. So, without further ado, let's take a look at this. We are a red guard to begin. Red guard, I think, is a great option for a build like this. Honestly, I would say red guard, orc, nord, probably best in slot for this kind of build. Taking a peek at our max stats, we have got 10k magicka, 24k hit points, and 33k stamina. So a nice amount of max stat there. We don't have a huge mag pool because we are not using a ton of magicka-based skills, so it's not a huge deal. 24k HP is really nice. We are in medium armor, so 24k is a great amount of burst cushion. And then 33k stam. Yep, we're going to have a good stam pool to work with as well. Taking a look at our recoveries, we're going to buff up real quick, as well as put our Betty Netch up, or our Bull Netch. We have got 600 mag recovery, just under 900 health, and just under 2,600 stam, plus the Netch, and the Netch is going to be returning 5,300 stam over 27 seconds, so a lot of stamina coming from that Netch as well. Huge amounts of recovery, actually. So we've got a huge amount of sustain on this build, and that, of course, is reflecting the fact that this is for no CP. If you think that this is too much sustain for a CP environment, you can always switch out a stamina recovery glyph here for some weapon damage if you want to opt out for a little bit more damage. However, this build is packing a huge punch as well, so don't feel like you need to drop recovery at all on it. The health recovery is not so bad. It is nice. Health recovery is just going to come in handy just for passively healing us as we fight. Taking a look at our weapon damage when we buff up on our front bar here, we are sitting at 3,500 weapon damage with 49% weapon critical. Now, we are running an infused bow with the Berserker enchant. It is a master bow as well, and we have the Ravager set on our front bar. So fully buffed, our weapon damage actually goes up by like 2,000 when we fully buff. Actually, like 2,000. We get to 5.5k weapon damage on this build. It hits super hard. We've got a 20k flawless or Dawnbreaker of smiting. We've got a 20k deep fissure. Yeah, we're gonna hurt on this build. We're really gonna hurt. Sorry, that's subterranean assault, not deep fissure. Our weapon critical is coming in at a massive 49%. We also have a very high crit rate on this build, and then on the bow bar we have 54%, so a little bit more crit on the bow bar. Really nice. We of course are in medium armor, so crits is going to be a great portion of damage, as well as a help to our healing. On top of it, the changes to shields in the Murkmire patch means that crit is going to be valuable against damage shields as well. Taking a look at our resistances, we're going to buff up on our bow bar. We are sitting at just around 23k physical spell resist on our sword and board bar. We are running blood spawn on this build too, so fully buffed, guys. We have 29k physical and spell resist on this spec. Really nice. It's gonna make us very chunky. We have a lot of healing power, a lot of damage, and a lot of resists. We're looking like one hella good brawler build on this spec. Taking a look at the crit resistance, we have got just under 3,200 critical resist, a massive amount of crit resist. Really nice yet again for this spec, keeping ourselves very chunky with blood spawn and the high crit resist. Now this would be lower if you wanted to opt out for more well fitted in your gear, so that's kind of up to the user. Meliodas decided that he wants to go crit resist on this spec, and because we're running sword and board, I totally understand the decision to go higher crit resist in the medium armor. Now, taking a look at our Mundus, we are running the warrior. This is going to give us a little bit more weapon damage, just helping out the burst on this spec. For the food that we're using, we have got the Artaeum Takeaway Broth. Now, this is the BIS food for a stamina build. It, of course, is fairly expensive to use. Max health and max stamina, max stam recovery, and health recovery. Really, really good food. If you cannot afford to use this food, because it is kind of expensive, you can always go with the Dubious Cameron Throne. It does the same thing, except you don't get the health recovery, and you just get a little bit less of your other stats from it as well. So if you want to pay the money, go for the good food. If not, go for the Dubious. It's nice and cheap then. And then taking a look at the potions that we use on this build, the potion that we're using is, of course, the Essence of Weapon Crit. And this one is here to give us some health back, to give us some stam back, give us both the Major Fortitude and Major Endurance. Really nice to give us that bonus recovery on this build as well. And on top of it, we get that Major Savagery buff. It's the one buff that we're missing on this spec. And for medium armor, you gots to have it. So there you go. Now, let's take a look at the gear that we're running on this spec. So to begin, we are running a 2-piece Blood Spawn. This is absolutely fantastic on the Warden. This build has an insane amount of alt gen. This is a really solid, really powerful build, and it has a lot of comeback potential due to the alt gen that it has, and Blood Spawn is just part of the alt gen that this build has. When we take damage, we have that 6% chance to generate 14 ultimate. Of course, we also get that physical spell resistance buff, and this is on a 6-second cooldown. Really, really nice. This pairs very nicely with our Sword and Board front bar as well. And of course, that stam recovery on the one piece, gots to have it too. Taking a look at the next set we have 5-piece Ranger's Gate. And you guys know why this is picked. This is, of course, going to give us massive defense against incoming snares. And on top of it, we get a 2, 3, 4, 5-piece stat on it. The 5-piece also gives us a little bit more stamina recovery. And then we get the max stam, weapon crit, and stam recovery as well. So a great amount of stat coming from the set. But that 50% reduced effectiveness of snares, this, of course, is going to stack with your Warden passive, which allows you to have 15% reduced effectiveness of snares. So you have a 65% snare resistance on this build. You don't have to run a purge. You don't need to run forward momentum. You're going to stay mobile just by running this set. Now, in this upcoming Murkmire patch, I think sets like the Ranger are going to be really, really good options, things that give you these kind of secondary effects that aren't just max stat, because in the past we've seen a lot of these max stat sets be very, very popular, but due to the slow power creep of the game and the fact that we're getting a lot of stats from other sources outside of just that 5-piece, these 5-piece sets like the Ranger are becoming more and more attractive for this game, I think. So there you guys go. We are running the 5-piece Ranger set. Such a fantastic set for the Warden. Pairs really nice with them passives. Taking a look at the next set that we have, it is on our front bar here. Sword and Board, 5-piece Ravager, weapon crit, max health, and weapon damage. And then, of course, when we deal melee damage, we have an 8% chance to increase our weapon damage by 645 for 10 seconds. That is a massive weapon damage increase. This, of course, is going to be fairly easy to proc because we are running Sword and Board, so we do want to do a lot of bash chaining and canceling as well. So we have a lot of outgoing attacks that can proc the Ravager on this build, which is really nice. And, of course, we're only running it on our front bar, which is the only place we need it. Huge amounts of damage buff coming from this, and, of course, it will help our healing too when we need to heal as well. And then the final set that we're running on the build, guys, is the Master's Bow. And this is on our back bar, Infused Master's Bow with the weapon spell damage enchant. Yup, massive amount of weapon damage coming from this bow. 300 plus 450, so we have 750 base weapon damage from this, 650 base weapon damage from Ravager. So that's where our 2,000 weapon damage after we get our percentage bonuses is coming from on this build. And yeah, it really helps this build hit super hard and gives it a massive amount of burst in a fight. So taking a look at the traits that we're running, we of course have the Infused Bow for that Berserker enchant. Gotta have that combination, I think. On the front bar, we have got the Nirnhoned Sword of the Ravager with the Sturdy Shield. Nirnhoned was picked, of course, because it gives us that increase to damage and healing. Sharpened is going to be better damage this patch, especially with the changes to damage shields. However, for the sake of a balanced build, I think the increased damage and healing is better to go for PvP in general. And then the Ravaging Shield, of course, is sturdy to help us block when we pull our shield out. We have a strong block, which is really nice with Sword and Board. It's going to give us a great amount of tank ability with our high resists and healing power that we have already. And we've gone with max stam on this guy to give us a little bit more burst on that front bar. And of course, the disease enchant for that chance at the heal debuff as well as the damage that it deals. Taking a look at the jewelry, we have got full infused jewelry with 2 times weapon damage and 1 times stamina recovery. Like I had mentioned, if you're playing in the CP campaign and you think your sustain is just fine, you can take this recovery glyph off and replace it with some damage if you like. For the gear that we're running, we are full impenetrable on the gear. Now, this is what Meliodas wanted to run on it, and because we're running Sword and Board, I agree. I think full impen is a great option, but if you don't want to go full impen, you can always throw 1 or 2 or 3 even well-fitted on this build. It will help out with your kitey gameplay and your dodge rolling. However, you'll take a little bit more damage when you're blocking, so that's kind of the trade-off there. And then, of course, we have got full max stamina glyphs on everything. We do not have to go for the CSJo because we get quite a lot of HP from our minor toughness buff as a Warden when we heal ourselves. On top of it, we get a little bit of HP from our Ravager set too. So we don't have to worry super big, and our food is giving us HP too. So we don't have to worry super huge about having a max HP pool that's really big. Now, that being said, if you want, you can go for the tri-stat CSJos and bulk up your HP at the cost of course, damage. The Magicka pool coming in at 10k is not a huge deal. We get a lot of great passives that will help give us mag sustain when we need it as well. So we don't have to worry too much, and we don't have a ton of mag skills that we're using anyway. So there you go. So let's take a look at the abilities that we're running on this build, guys. So on our first bar here, we're going to take a look at the Sword and Board bar. Coming in with our first ability, we have got Subterranean Assault. This is going to be your primary burst setter. On top of it, this ability will hit super hard. We are fully unbuffed here with this thing. We're just going to buff up with the weapon damage. With the rest of our additional damage buffs up, we get up to almost a 20k Subterranean Assault. So we hit super, super hard sub-assaults on this build. Yeah, it's going to be great. Of course, it will also apply that Major Fracture, which is really nice, and I believe this counts as a melee-based attack, so perhaps it can proc the Ravager. I haven't tested it myself on the Murkmire patch. Taking a look at Soothing Spores, this is our heal that we're going to be using, our primary burst heal. Really fantastic for the Stamina Warden. It is quite expensive, however, for how good the heal is, it has to be expensive. That's just how she goes. It is a nice 10k heal, so it's a pretty bulky heal here, a little bit more, 9k heal, and then of course 15% more when we heal someone that's close to us, and that counts for ourselves. So we're sitting at that over a 10k tooltip on this bad boy. Taking a look at the next ability, we have got Reverberating Bash. This is going to be your primary stun for the build, as well as a healing debuff. This pairs really nice, again, with our Disease Enchant, so we can do the major and minor defile between the two. 30% reduced healing and health recovery is really nice. And of course, this is a very fast stun. It's really good to animation cancel. You can catch people with it really easily. The next ability that we have is Bird of Prey. Now, this has been changed a little bit in the Murkmire patch to give you the passive Minor Berserk when you slot it, and then when you activate it, it gives you the stamina recovery as well as the movement speed bonus. I like this change because you don't have to cast it as often. It's essentially one less buff that we have to use unless we need that speed buff, and it's mostly there for that passive Minor Berserk slot, which is really, really nice. It's going to be a great damage increaser on our front bar here, and that's where we want all our bursts to be anyway. The next ability that we have is Heroic Slash, and this is going to be the primary spammable of the build when you want to deal that up-close damage. It is going to reduce your opponent's movement speed by 60% for 4 seconds, so it's also a brutal snare. We apply Minor Maim, really great for small-scale fight. That Minor Maim for 15% less damage done from your opponent really helps you mitigate the damage. And then on top of it, we get Minor Heroism, giving us 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 9 seconds. Yep, this paired with Bloodspawn, we're going to have some great ult gen. Really nice, really nice. And then for the ultimate that we're using on our front bar, we have got Dawnbreaker of Smiting, a massive AoE smack. It will stun everyone it hits. It is an undodgeable AoE, which is so good. And on top of it, it'll apply that really brutal dot for the next 5 seconds, which is really nice. So this pairs really well, of course, with Subterranean Assault, giving the Stamina Warden a great amount of AoE burst potential, which is very, very good for something like PvP. Now, taking a look at our bow bar, the first ability that we have is Ice Fortress. And Ice Fortress is here as our primary defensive buff. It's going to give us both our major physical and spell resistance buffs, as well as minor protection for 24 seconds. So this is just a passive buff here. The next ability we have is Bull Netch. This, of course, is going to give us access to some stamina sustain, which is really nice. 5,400 stamina over 27 seconds is quite a lot of sustain. That's like almost 300 stam recovery, so really nice. And then on top of it, we get that major brutality on this build as well from the Bull Netch. Bow, Sword, and Board is missing access to that major brutality buff, so that is how we're going to cover it on the Warden here. And then, of course, the next ability we have is Shimmering Shield. You guys know why this is here. To complete our massive amount of heroism buffs that we have on this build. So this is going to be an access to the major heroism for us, which is really nice. Pair that with minor heroism, pair it with blood spawn. Our alt gen on this build is nuts. You're going to be dumping out alts like it's nobody's business. You're going to be putting them out so fast. You can pretty much stay in perma healing trees on this spec. Not actually, but pretty close. You're going to have a crazy amount of alt gen. So that's going to play into that there. On top of it, activating this will give us that shield, and it'll absorb projectiles. So it's a really great counter to ranged opponents for the Warden, which is really nice. So we have not only the counter to snares, but we have a very powerful defense against a ranged opponent. And it will return the cost of the ability somewhat as the projectiles are absorbed. So this ability is actually quite cheap to use as long as you don't spam it unnecessarily. And then our next ability we have is Resolving Vigor. This is going to be our next heal that we have, kind of the secondary heal. It's going to be a powerful heal over time. You can always use a heal like this. You pop your Vigor and then go into combat to make sure you're healing as you enter combat. Works really well. It's also going to pair really nice with our other heal just to give us a lot of bulk healing power. This tooltip will get higher, of course, if we proc Major Mending with our Soothing Spores, which is the burst heal you'll use when your HP drops. Then you'll get a really fat Vigor afterwards. So yeah, we have a great Vigor on this build, and then this will go even higher as we have our other sets proccing as well. And then for the last ability, we have Poison Injection. This is, of course, a way for us to proc our Master Bow. We need to have Poison Injection in order for the Master Bow to be effective. It is going to put that nasty dot on them, a little bit of upfront poison damage, and this dot will deal increased damage as our opponent's health begins to drop below 50%. So it is sort of our damage over time execute for this build. Really, really nice. Now, this is the only execute we really have. However, Warden has a really strong burst kit, so you don't really need to run an execute on it. So there you go. And then finally, guys, for the ultimate on our bow bar, we are running Enchanted Forest. Yeah. With all the alt gen we have, and then Enchanted Forest, which is going to give us that 6-second heal of the forest, and then as we leave it, we'll get continued healing every second for 6 seconds. So we get a 12-second, essentially, heal over time with this ultimate that is very, very powerful. And then on top of it, when we cast the ability, if the initial heal is on a target that's under 50% health, we'll generate 20 ultimate right away, making this ability cost 70 ultimate for the next cast. Yeah, that's what I said. We can almost permatree on this build. We're going to have all of the alt gen that we need to keep this buff up for a long time. And not only is this great healing for ourselves, but this is great healing for allies as well. This is how we're going to stay very, very tanky on this build. Yeah, crazy synergy with Blood Spawn, especially because we get the armor buff as well. So let's take a look at the champion points on this build, guys. So to begin, we're going to start off in our tower tree. 23 Warlord, 6 Sprinter, 18 Bashing Focus, and of course 1 in Siphoner. Big focus on Warlord because we got to break free. We're going to do some sprinting, but we did go a bit heavier in bashing simply because we're running Sword and Board. And Sword and Board bash actually does quite a lot of damage, so it's beneficial to animation cancel a bash in just to deal more burst, especially on such a hard-hitting build like this one. So that's why we've put some points there. And then Siphoner because we had a single point left over. In the Lover tree, we have got 64 Mooncalf, 15 Arcanist, and 37 in Healthy, with 4 Tenacity, just to get that equal 120 for wind running. Gotta have that passive. Big focus on Mooncalf, though, because we have a lot of stam recovery. Healthy is the secondary recovery focus because, of course, we have a good amount of health recovery on this spec, so we can really take advantage of that. And then Arcanist, just for a little bit of mag recovery and some in tenacity for those heavy attacks returns. In the Shadow Tree, we have got 51 Shadow Ward and 51 in Tumbling. This is a great spread, I think, for this build. Bow, sword, and board, medium armor. You want to have big points in both of these trees because we got to roll a lot and we got to block a lot. Both are going to be very important for this build. Taking a look at our blue tree, we're going to go right to the Atronach. We got 81 Master at Arm and 39 Physical Weapon Expert. This is a very standard Atronach tree for a Stamina Burst build. Big focus on Master at Arm for that upfront damage, and then, of course, Physical Weapon Expert for that light and heavy attack increase for our bow and our sword and board. The Tactician passive, so important. When we roll dodge, we set an opponent off balance, synergizing really well with the Exploiter passive from this tree. 10% bonus damage against an off-balance opponent. So really, really nice for this build. And then, of course, in the Ritual, we've got 56 Mighty, 50 Piercing, 44 Precise Strikes. We go heavier onto the Mighty side, and then we get a good amount in Piercing, a little bit less in Precise Strikes, just because we have under 50% crit rate on our main bar. So we don't focus too heavily on Precise and put a little bit more points into Mighty. But for the most part, this is a fairly even spread. The important passives are, of course, Perfect Strike for that 9% weapon crit, Exploiter we mentioned already, and then Last Stand. It's just going to be more access to Major Heroism for this build if our HP drops below 20%. Really nice. But we don't get this in no CP, so this is only in the champion campaigns. And then in the Steed tree, we have got 56 Ironclad, 60 Resistant, 31 Spell, and 31 Medium Armor Focus. Huge focus here on bulking up our base stats, as well as giving us a lot of resistance against incoming Burst. Burst is pretty much what kills for the most part in PvP. We got a lot of incoming crits. The resistance going to help there. Direct damage attacks is a lot of the big incoming burst abilities, so that is going to help defend there. And then bulking up our based resist is going to be really nice for medium armor as well. Taking a look at the Lady Tree, we got 27 Hardy, 27 Elemental, and 28 Thick Skin. Really even spread here. We don't have a Purge, so of course we want to focus on some Thick Skin here. Just reduce the incoming damage we take from physical, magical, and damage over time effects. And then in our Lord Tree, we've got 10 in Quick Recovery. And this should be 11. Take maybe 1 point out of Resistant and put it in here. And we'll have 3% increased healing. And that is the build, my friends. All right, guys, so let's take a look at some PvP footage of the build in action. So as I had mentioned, this is, of course, a no CP build, so this will be all BG footage. There you see, massive spike, the Subterranean into the Dawnbreaker. Huge smack on that guy to bring him down. Now we move on to another clip here, just showcasing the burst of this build. Here you see we go for the Subterranean into the shield charge. Now here he's opted out of running the Reverberating Bash, and he's going for the shield gap closer instead. That, of course, is an option if you want to stay more mobile with your gap closer. You, of course, give up your ability to heal debuff, but you still have the stun off the charge. So that's the only real change that he's got in the build going on here. As you can see there, another massive combo. We go for the Subterranean Assault, Poison Injection, and gap close into them with the Dawnbreaker. Massive amounts of damage. And here you can see he's just kind of playing a little bit defensive here, holding the front line. There you see another, oh my gosh, huge combo on that guy to bring him down. And that actually won that fight for them. So now we've got another clip here. He's just waiting for his friends to come. This build, of course, like I said, is going to have a lot of synergy with the heal for group fighting as well. And the AoE is great for group fighting too. So we've got a lot of AoE pressure. And here you see just the massive, massive burst coming out of here. Whenever these poor guys, man, they just can't even respond to it. Oh my lord, so much damage. Okay. Moving on to another clip here. We're entering the fight, so we've got a bit of a scrum going on at the bottom here. Go for a stun on this guy here. Put some good damage into him. The red player turns and attacks as well, so we get good damage there. Turn and burn the red player with the Subterranean assault there. Go for the trees. Here you see the trees doing a great job just kind of healing. Of course, returning some resource due to them being a green balance ability. Each tick will return some resource, so that's really, really nice. And here you see he manages to do a lot of damage, clear some pressure here, and just push into these guys. Opening on this guy here, he goes for the Soul Assault. The opposing Soul Assault doesn't do a ton of damage, so he just responds right away with a poison injection into the trees to throw some heals down on not only himself, but the friendly players. And just look at how fast his ultimate shooting back up. Almost already got another trees ready. So there you really get to see that insane amount of ult sustain on this build. Going for the Subterranean here, pushing back into the front line. Great Subterranean spike on that guy to bring him down in his role. Such a great thing that it is undodgeable being an AoE. And then we go again for the trees here. The trees are going to double not only as a good group heal, but like I said, we get that resource return. You see his stamina start to shoot up a little bit when he throws the trees down. Really nice. And then here we go. Nice stun on this guy here with the gap closer into him, into some beautiful sword and board heroic slashes to bring him down. I got a couple players lined up here. Good Subterranean assault, stunning the first player with the gap closer here, and then just doing a retreat. Notice how he keeps the shield up, the shimmering shield. Really good for two reasons. Not only will it mitigate a lot of ranged burst, which as a squishier medium armor build, you can sometimes struggle with a lot of ranged burst. On top of it, it's going to give a lot of magicka it's going to give a lot of alt gen with the major heroism. So good amounts of stuff coming from there. And here you see manages to clean up everything. Really nice play there, cleaning it up with the teammates. Really great synergy on this build. So there you go, guys. We don't have a ton of footage for this build. I'm terribly sorry. That is all that he sent me. But again, I want to say a huge shout out to Meliodas for sending me the build as well as the footage. Thank you so much, man. It was a super sweet build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really enjoyed putting this one together in the PTS. I really liked the synergy on this build. Absolute incredible synergy for this build. Very powerful and rounded spec. So without further ado, guys, if you enjoyed that video, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you guys want to feature your own builds on the channel or send me some PvP footage for a top 5 PvP montage, you can, of course, send them to CristoferESO@hotmail.com. We play live on Twitch. If you guys want to see some live gameplay, come check me out on Twitch. And then finally, we are sponsored by What the Fast. They are a VPN for gamers. They give me about 30 to 40 better ping on average to ESO. If you get crap ping to your favorite games, they're free to try. No credit card, nothing. So there you go, guys. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you again next time.